What is going on, everybody? I just completed 300 fantasy football mock drafts on the year and counting. So I wanted to come on here and share with you guys the running backs that I am drafting the least, and running backs you really should not be drafting this year given their ADP, their offense, and their circumstances. So make sure to watch this video all the way through because it might possibly be a controversial one. That being said, make sure to hit that like button real quick, and if you are new to the page, go ahead and subscribe because you've already found this video for information, and this is where all the rest of it is, so you might as well hit that button while you're at it. You guys know me, I do not like to waste time on these videos. Now, before I do fully jump into this list, I want to give you guys a little breakdown of my thought process, which I'll talk a little bit more about during the video. But this list isn't necessarily based on running backs that will completely lose you a league. Necessarily, it's kind of the opposite in a way. When most people look for running backs that we don't want to draft, we usually just look at some guys and say, I don't like their offense, I don't like their scheme, they're going to lose me a league and I'm staying away from them completely. And they go ahead and put them on their do not draft list. But for this page, I really like talking about values, ADPs, but we also want to focus on the other half of running backs that can burn you in a league. That's for a different reason. So I'll give you a quick example. In this video, I do have Aaron Jones on this list of running backs or just players that I'm not necessarily reaching to draft. Do I think Aaron Jones is a complete bust player? No, I don't necessarily think that. But do I think he's going to break out enough to where if I don't draft him, he's going to burn me and make me lose my league because somebody else is winning theirs from drafting him? No, I don't think so either. And that's how I look at a lot of running backs especially. Because if the answer is no, I don't think these players have the offensive scheme, the offensive ability, the volume, the usage, or any of that to burn me and make me regret passing up on him in the draft. I'm going to take a wide receiver or a tight end that does have that capability. So yes, there is some level of risk and bust ability, I guess, if you want to call it that. But the majority of this is about maximizing value and creating the best possible week for week team. The other half of how you lose leagues is by letting other players in your league grab the league winning guys. So that is my thought process on a lot of these players. Yes, some of them are just truly league losing, taking them at that high of an ADP wherever they're going, but you also have to take into account the opportunity cost that you're losing by taking some of these guys. So the first running back on this list that I am not drafting at all, and you guys probably shouldn't be either, is Aaron Jones. And this does kind of surprise me to say because I have liked Aaron Jones for the past couple years now, but it's finally time to turn that narrative. The main reason you really shouldn't be drafting Aaron Jones is because of this offense, and I think people are too optimistic about the Packers this year. People are not taking into account how truly bad this offense is going to be. Even with Aaron Rodgers last year, they only averaged 21 points a game. They ranked 17th in red zone fantasy points per game in the running back position. And the reason this is such a big deal is because they had Aaron Rodgers last year, who was more than a capable quarterback, and they were still towards the bottom of the NFL in efficiency. And now they have Jordan Love, who is considerably worse. And this offense is going to take a step back, and people just are not speculating this. The production of this entire team, especially the running backs, is going to go down a lot this year, and they're easily going to be a bottom 10 offense. And neither Aaron Jones or AJ Dillon can make something out of this bottom 10 offense if they're both splitting carries with each other. It's just not going to work. And I haven't even gotten into AJ Dillon and why you should be drafting Aaron Jones because of him. But Aaron Jones is being drafted as the RB16 in the late 4th round, almost 5th round. And that is just a really high price to pay for a terrible offense and a backfield that's splitting carries. I mean, this really shouldn't be too hard to understand. And going back to AJ Dillon, he is very much involved in this offense. Last year, they split about 60-40 in the backfield. When Aaron Jones was missing time last year with injuries, AJ Dillon was a really efficient fantasy points per game running back. So I really just think it's going to be hard for him to outperform his ADP. And one of the main reasons I'm really not drafting him is because in round 4 and 5, I'm really targeting more wide receivers and quarterbacks that have a lot more stable of an offense. And the other half of not drafting Aaron Jones, and pretty much the criteria I use for all of my running backs, is if I don't draft them and I pass on them with my pick, are they going to come back to burn me and haunt me for the rest of the year? And I really don't think Aaron Jones is going to outperform ADP that much to where I'm going to regret not taking him. Because again, what are the chances that he destroys his ADP with a lower ceiling and a bad offense and a split backfield? It's probably not very high. The next running back you should be avoiding in drafts, and this one really pains me to say, is Brian Robinson. And unfortunately, as a Commanders fan, I just don't see a world where he garners enough volume and upside in this Commanders offense as I wish he would. He came back last year looking really efficient and at times being the RB1 for the Commanders. Going back to the other point of, do I think he can lose me a league by not taking him? And the answer is no. And the reason I don't think he can break out or even meet his ADP, which is already pretty low, so it shouldn't be insanely hard to do, is because of a couple reasons. The first thing is that the Commanders aren't really a super dominant offense. The only thing that they need Brian Robinson to do is churn out these yards. He doesn't really get a whole lot of receiving work, red zone opportunities, but that's what he's good at. He's good at just churning out those yards, and that's all they need him to do. Last year through 12 weeks, he only had 60 receiving yards on the entire season and only 2 touchdowns. But he did have 800 rushing yards, which is pretty good for a fantasy perspective. Not to mention, again, like the Aaron Jones situation, he's splitting the backfield with Antonio Gibson. There's just no way he's going to phase Antonio Gibson out of this backfield. So in an offense where he gets no receiving work, no red zone opportunities, and only middle churning yards, even if he were to get 100 yards on the ground every game, he's just barely cracking over double-digit fantasy points. And there's also been reports that they want to get Antonio Gibson more involved in the receiving game, granted, like they say every year, but now they have a new offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy, who's only ever operated committee backfields. So I really don't see a world where Brian Robinson can burn me for not taking him, or he outperforms Antonio Gibson and becomes more of a lead back. Even if Antonio Gibson were to get injured, he wouldn't be a top 10 running back. Isn't that much breakout potential, and there's a lot of other guys I'd rather take at that ADP. As much as I love Brian Robinson as a Commanders fan, there's just no way he should be drafted before Antonio Gibson. But the next running back I do have on this list is Kenneth Walker, and thank goodness he's dropping down from a 3rd round ADP where he used to be drafted about a month ago, because that is just insane. Now he's going in the mid 4th round, which I can get more behind, but it's still a little bit early for me, and let me explain why. And again, he's not on this list just because I think he's a bad running back and he can't perform. Then no, it's more of his situation and his opportunity in this offense is going to change. Again, his ADP is just way too high for me. Where he's going in drafts right now, he's being drafted over Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, TJ Hockenson, Lamar Jackson, all guys I would way rather have over him. Again, like the Packers, people aren't really thinking about how much this team is going to utilize all of their running backs. It's not just going to be the Kenneth Walker show. He virtually has no path to actually breaking out. They just drafted Zach Charbonnet in the 2nd round. They got Kenny McIntosh. They got a whole bunch of running back options. Not to mention he's being drafted in somewhat of what I like to call an RB dead zone around guys like Travis Etienne and Aaron Jones. So again, there's just much better options at their ADP like the guys I listed before. And yeah, they're not running backs, but I don't really like any of the running backs in this round 4-ish turn. He does have a groin injury now too, which I don't really think is going to be that serious. He'll probably be back before week 1, if not by week 1. But I think that's why he's been dropping a little bit in these draft boards. But again, this just is not an ideal situation for an offense that wants to pass more this year. And they have Zach Charbonnet, who's going to take all of the pass catching work. That's exactly what they drafted him for. So it's just too high of an ADP for me. I am not looking for it. I'd way rather have another wide receiver or quarterback at this level. But speaking of Travis Etienne, he is the next guy on this list I really don't like drafting in the 3rd round. Is absolutely insane. That being said, the Jaguars are going to improve this year. I really do like their team, but this ADP is just insane for the circumstances that he's in, and it's definitely changing from last year, and people don't really want to think about that. The reason we're drafting him so high around guys like Najee, Breece Hall, and Ramondre Stevenson is because of the season he kind of put together last year and the role that he had. But his role is changing a lot, and let me explain why. Last year, he was the only running back for the Jaguars, and this was not by choice. Last year, the only competition he had was James Robinson, Snoop Conner, JaMychal Hasty, all running backs that are easily tiers below him. They still managed to take carries out of this offense when they had the chance. So on top of the fact of last year, even when he was the best running back in the backfield, they still tried to get other running backs involved. But also, the work he did have, he was not efficient in. He was 6th in running back red zone usage in the entire NFL, but he ranked 32nd in red zone touchdowns, which is actually insane. He is nowhere near efficient anywhere inside the 20-yard line or before that. He also was negatively efficient in the receiving game, which a lot of people are kind of confused about because they'll say, wait a minute, he got 35 catches last season. That's a pretty decent amount for the running back position. And he ranked 15th in routes run out of the backfield, but he ranked 33rd in target rate out of those routes. So he just was not getting open and was not getting the ball. So let's put this together. He's not good in the receiving game. He's not good in the red zone. And they just drafted Tank Bigsby, who is amazing in the red zone and amazing in the receiving game. And that is simply going to destroy any kind of breakout potential you think that he might have. Tried to get all the running backs involved last year, but they kept getting injuries and there was complications. And now they have a clear better guy in Tank Bigsby, who they drafted early specifically to fill in this void. Last year just so happened to be the best possible scenario of his entire life, and he'll never see that again. Not to mention, since the very first day Doug Peterson stepped foot on this team, he's been wanting to expand this backfield and saying he wants to make it dynamic and lead towards a committee. So if the Jaguars aren't shoving receiving work and red zone carries down his throat, why are we drafting him in the 3rd round? If anything, just take Tank Bigsby 150 picks later. But that is going to finish off the video of the running backs I'm completely staying away from, whether it's just too high of an ADP, the circumstance, or the offensive abilities. I am not drafting him, and I hope this information helps you guys make these decisions for yourself on draft day. And if you got any kind of value, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, and like up the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.